to follow recruits. But those were special, special days. And now National Signing Day is just, it's just kind of another day. But it is what it is. But South Carolina, at least to this point, is having a good day. We'll talk about that a lot today. But we opened the show on last night's loss to Virginia Tech, a game that, quite frankly, you can never say must win in college basketball, because if South Carolina loses that but goes, say, 12-6 in conference, they would get into the NCAA tournament, and then that does not make last night a must win. So I don't know, early on if there's ever must wins coming down the stretch. There might be 4 or 5 games at the very end that do end up being must wins. But last night, it was close. It was close given the non-conference schedule, but it wasn't defined as a must win. But one that South Carolina needed, we call it that. And they just kind of don't turn in the performance that you need to beat a good, no better than a good Virginia Tech team. 8 of 30 from three-point range were the Gamecocks last night. That's not going to get it done, especially for a team that is expected to shoot the three exceptionally well. We'll talk more basketball in hour number 2, but Elijah Strong had a good night. The power forward, the transfer from Boston College, had a good night. Didn't play bad. But there are statistical things you look at that simply cannot happen. They cannot be part of the equation if you're going to win. And last night, Elijah Strong, who when we were doing preseason predictions and preseason previews, we were talking about Michi Johnson shooting a lot of threes and Eli Ellis shooting threes. And if Christian Polk came in shooting threes and other players shooting threes. Elijah Strong was not one of those guys. And last night, 1 of 9. 1 of 9 from three-point range. 6 of 16 from the field. 18 points. Gave you a nice 25 minutes. Only grabbed 3 rebounds. That is a little bit of a concern. Got to get that fixed a little bit. But 1 of 9. Now, if you want to be sweet to him, you say, well, he's 1 of 8. That last one was a heave at the very end to try and tie the game. Half court or full court pass, essentially a half court shot. Okay, 1 of 8 if you don't count the half court heave. There were a lot of things that South Carolina did not do that allowed that game to come down to when it did in the end of regulation. And then you get to the end of regulation and you hear Lamont Paris talking about the end of it, and I agree with everything he said. And the easy, lazy narrative in this is that, well, that's bad coaching. That Lamont Paris got out-coached by Mike Young. And I love, by the way, for those that don't know, I love Mike Young. I interviewed for a spot on Mike Young's staff at Wofford years ago. And then he ran the numbers on me. You have 2 children. You would make $15,000 a year. You would live in essentially a college dorm. How do you think your, at that time, current wife would feel about that? The math added up to me not taking the job. But I love Mike Young. I'm one of his biggest fans. And I think not only as a basketball coach, but as a human being, he's an incredible person. But he didn't out-coach Lamont Paris last night. Lamont Paris, I thought, did a good job with his team. He had his team ready. Lamont Paris, unless they change the rules, cannot go out and make a few more extra three-pointers for his team. Lamont Paris can tell Michi Johnson all he wants as a 5th or whatever Michi is now, 5th or 6th year player, to take a shot before the clock hits triple digits in a tie game. Something Lamont shouldn't have to teach, because that kind of gets ingrained in every kid's head, really, from the time they start picking up a basketball, because they want to shoot the ball and they want to make the game winner. You shouldn't have to teach him that. That's on the players. And the players have to make the plays. The players have to be held accountable. Now, Lamont has got his own flaws, and he's got to do better about certain things. I'm not trying to tell you that Lamont Paris is this grade A plus head basketball coach where the players just aren't performing. But I'm not going to sit here today and say, boy, that Lamont Paris should have called a timeout in this situation or that situation. To me, and especially now with NIL and what we've done with football and the coming off a 4-8 season, players have to be held accountable. And Meechie Johnson last night had a good game. Give him credit. 18 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Probably want to see a little bit more of those just because he seems to be the primary facilitator. 1 turnover. That's a great stat. Again, the 6 rebounds shows me he's in there. He's battling it out. Probably like him to hit 2 of his other 4. He had shot 4 free throws. But Meechie played fine. But you know what? He didn't make the play when it counted. He didn't even give them, and this is the worst part, didn't even give them the chance to make the play when it counted. And South Carolina suffers an 86-83 loss. And unfortunately, when we looked at this non-conference schedule, you went, oh, that's a dog of a schedule. But I defended it and said that's the perfect schedule for South Carolina. They get to set up a schedule against a lot of cream puffs, a lot of cupcakes that they should win, and Lamont should get a chance to figure out his rotation and learn his players. And it also gives him a chance to play 4 premium games, if you will. It's not like they're playing the Dukes and the Kansas and the Arizonas and the UConns of the world. But Northwestern, Butler, Virginia Tech, and Clemson is 4 solid non-conference games. And if you could go 3-1 and you win the rest of your non-conference games, you felt pretty good going to SEC play. If you went 2-2 and you won the rest of your non-conference games, you beat up on Southern Miss. Yeah, okay, fine, it took overtime, but you won. You beat up on North Carolina A&T. You get Stetson on Saturday. Oh, boy. If you won those games, you would say, all right, going to SEC play, we got a chance. We're in this thing. But when you're 0-3, and it doesn't matter if you lose by 3 or you lose by 13 or 40 or whatever, you're 0-3 against the opponents, the teams. And now you got 1 left on the road against Clemson. And men's basketball is going to be a topic of discussion, whether you like it or not, going into the spring, because of the fact that at this point through 3 years, two of the worst 3 basketball seasons at South Carolina in the last 40 or 50 years have been had by this particular coach. And we can talk about Shane Beamer being on the hot seat, but this might be Jeremiah Donati's first true major decision he has to make. By the time we get to the end of basketball, baseball will just be really kicking off, so we won't know anything about what Paul Maneri's doing in Season 2. But Lamont Paris has got to win games. And unfortunately, last night, he takes the L. The team takes the L. But, not getting a shot off at the end of regulation and then not being able to get the job, just a bad defensive stand at the end to allow Virginia Tech to the rim to make a layup, kind of similar to the Southern Miss game where South Carolina was still able to win. Basketball is going to be important because it could be a very big defining point depending on a lot of basketball still have to be played. 18 conference games, still a month, still a game against Clemson, so things can change, things can improve. NCAA tournament, well, you're going to have to do a whole lot against a conference that I've been watching a ton of basketball last night. I had both TVs going. It was a great night of basketball. Tennessee goes into Syracuse and loses. That was phenomenal. Duke, Florida was absolutely phenomenal. Didn't make it to the end of North Carolina, Kentucky. But North Carolina winning last night. Kansas, Connecticut, phenomenal. I've been watching a lot of college basketball. I love college basketball right now. We're getting great matchups. But I am seeing a definitive wide margin difference between South Carolina and the teams I just mentioned are the upper echelon of college basketball. But I'm also seeing a major difference between South Carolina and some of the SEC teams. And so things like last night come into play because we can talk about Shane Beamer in Season 6 and the importance of it, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and retaining jobs. Lamont Paris in Season 4, given the previous 3 years, Now, one of those was the best technically in school history in terms of wins. Can't throw that out the window. But the other two are different, and right now trending in a bad direction, despite the fact they're just 5-3. Should be 6-3 after Saturday when they beat Stetson. Should win that game. But last night, a tough loss. And I tell you what, Dave, let's listen. This is cut number 3 because as we get ready to go to break, we'll listen to this and then I'll come back. This is Lamont Paris last night on the frustration of him and his team right now.
My frustration lies in not just the fact that we didn't close out, and there were some plays, some decisions, and some performances at the end that affected that. But more frustrating to me was throughout that first half, we were constantly making decisions and doing things that were preventing us from being in a situation that we wanted to. So, you want to talk about just self-inflicted wounds and just decisions that were different than what we've talked about or worked on. We have to change that, or it's only going to come down just to talent and athleticism. And that's a rough way to live life, is to bet on those. But
basketball will be a discussion. I know that there's likely going to be apathy and checking out that occurs if the season does not go well. But again, as I said, it is likely, in my opinion, that this is where we get our first true judgment from Jeremiah Donati at the very end of the season as to how he views a direction of a program. Because right now, you've won the games that you were more than expected to win. You have lost the games that were what I would say is even contest. I don't think Butler, Northwestern, and or Virginia Tech are head shoulders above South Carolina, and you're 0-3. And last night, I get the coach's frustration. I get hearing him unhappy with his players in that situation, and I get feeling that a big one slipped away. We've got a busy show for you. Hale McGranahan will join us at 12:30. Let's get the updates on signing day. What's going on with Julian Walker? There's rumors about Landon Duckworth flipping to LSU now. Is Darius Gray officially in the boat? Well, you probably already know the answer to that, but we'll make sure in case you're just tuning in. We'll talk with him. College football playoff rankings out last night. Some new information to absorb there. Brad Crawford will join us at 1 o'clock. We'll talk about that. And at 2:15 today, J.C. Sherbert joins us, all things South Carolina. We're going to have a lot of fun. You're welcome to join in, and love for you, too. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Captain David Davis, the Halftime Show. 12:20 coming up here in about 10 minutes. We will catch up with our good buddy, Hale McGranahan of thebigspur.com to get an update on where things stand through signing day. We've had some flips today, none for well, again, we're kind of having to stay on top of this as we go through the day because Steve Whitfong, I believe within the hour, I didn't go look and see what exact time Steve Whitfong did his Fong bomb on three, whatever he does, whatever they do now. But if you're wondering, the kind of the news of the day is Landon Duckworth now may be flipping to LSU. He had been recruited at at Mississippi by Lane Kiffin. That had kind of cooled off, but Lane now looking for a freshman quarterback. Who knows what direction he'll exactly go. Lane has no problem bringing in multiple quarterbacks out of the transfer portal, and there's no doubt in my mind that he will, and he'll probably get a good one for next year. But he is targeting, the rumor was last night, targeting Landon Duckworth. As of this morning, and I'll tell you how quickly these situations evolve, I believe at about 9 a.m., so just over 3 hours ago, Steve Whitfong put up on Gamecock Central that he felt good Landon Duckworth would be signing with South Carolina, and it was not too much later that he then flipped his, again, prediction, whatever they kind of call it, the Fong bomb, the whatever they do over there on three, and now had him going to LSU. So we are monitoring that situation, and we'll catch up with Hale McGranahan in a few minutes. Also, Julian Walker, the local defensive end from Dutch Fork High School, fresh off his visit to Michigan last week, went on the visit with his mother up there, has been committed to Michigan. You know, I'm all for the kid being able to do what he wants to do. Now, if you're a little unfamiliar, his father, Jamel Walker, is on the strength and conditioning staff at South Carolina, which is why there is hope, I guess you would say, for South Carolina to flip him. The family connection, the fact that his father does not appear to be in any way, he's an assistant or he's somewhere in there on the strength and conditioning staff, does not appear to be in any danger of losing his job, and you certainly do not fire someone because their child made a decision based on what they wanted to do. But there is that family connection to the University of South Carolina, so we'll see. Now, it's not remember this with Julian Walker, it's not a lifetime connection. This isn't Julian Walker growing up here in Columbia being like, all I know is South Carolina. This is all I've grown up. He's been around. I think the father, Jamel, was I believe at Arkansas. Without looking it right back up instantly, I believe Jamel was at Arkansas prior to coming to South Carolina, if I'm thinking correctly. So Julian, the son, who has developed into a big-time prospect, can give credit last year to Preston Thorne when Somerville and Dutch Fork played, Preston being the defensive lineman he is, took notice of Julian Walker and said at the end of that game between Somerville and Dutch Fork in the state championship game in 2024 that Julian Walker just flat out took over. And quite frankly, South Carolina, even though he'd be a freshman, South Carolina needs a bookend, even if it's only for 1 year, for Dylan Stewart. They need a guy. Byron Thomas Jr. this year, I think, did all he could and punched above his weight class, if you will. But South Carolina needs an elite edge rusher, and I don't know, again, asking a lot there from a freshman in Julian Walker, but that is certainly a big one that we're monitoring. The most recent words on Walker are that he will sign tomorrow. We'll again talk with Hale McGranahan coming up here in about 5 minutes on this. I believe if you're, I've done this long enough that I can read tea leaves on this and figure things out. The latest that I saw was that Walker is not doing a public ceremony. And I think the Walker family is very classy. I don't think they are trying to troll anybody. I don't think they are trying to hurt South Carolina's feelings. And if you're not doing a public ceremony and you're not trying to make it a very big event and or deal on a day that really is a big deal, so many of these young kids, this is what they've dreamed about. This is what they've worked out for. This is all they've done since they were 4 years old and younger. If you're not doing anything public, A, kudos to you. You're much more humble than I am. B, probably means you're not trying to upset the local people that you got to hang around with for a few more months. So we'll catch up with him. Gamecocks do have some signings in the boat. And, look, this is going to be a good class, and we're going to talk about this throughout the day. It's going to be a small class. It's going to be a small class because South Carolina is going to hit the transfer portal incredibly hard, hoping to bring in players that can make an impact in 2026. And I'm not saying that freshmen can't make an impact. They certainly can. But you got to have the elite of the elite of the elite a lot of times to come in. Not all the time, but the numbers are more in favor of the upper echelon players. And South Carolina, who has right now officially announced 8 players in the class as of the BigSpur.com's last update. Darius Gray, the 5-star offensive lineman. That's a good start. That's a great player to add to your class if you can develop him. It would technically mean 2 5-stars on your offensive line in Darius Gray and Josiah Thompson, but it takes coaching, right? Like that's – you can't just throw 5 stars out there in the SEC and be like, go get them, fellas. You did fantastic in high school. Sean Elliott or whomever has to coach them up. Gamecocks have also signed linebacker Keenan Britt, in-state tight end Caden Ramsey, defensive lineman Noah Clark, a defensive tackle, and a big one at that. In-state offensive lineman Anthony Baxter from South Point, defensive back Kosi Barnes from the state of North Carolina, another big-time offensive line prospect, 4-star Zion Giles, and defensive back KJ Johnson, or at least according to the BigSpur.com, are all signed and officially a Gamecock. I don't know what that means, by the way, nowadays with the way things work out. We'll take a break. Hale McGranahan will give us more in-depth. We've also got some running back discussion. Carson Baker tomorrow. Julian Walker tomorrow. What's the status of Landon Duckworth? What exactly may South Carolina be looking at in the transfer portal? And Hale's a pretty smart guy, too. We'll ask him about the offense coordinator search as we roll along. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare, Tyler Head with the day off. It is the Halftime Show. It is 12:33 on a National Signing Day. And joining me now to celebrate, although, hell, you've covered this a long time. Many different websites, many different publications, many different universities. It is so different today. And we're still trying to figure this out because, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time we've now moved it to the very beginning of December. I believe the last, 3 or 4 years, it's been the middle of December. Now it's, am I wrong on this? Am I so confused that this is the first time we've done it as the first Wednesday of December?
Yeah, so I was off on that a few weeks ago because it was last year was when they did it for the first time this early in the month. So you're not totally off base with that thought, Bill, but it's the second time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's gotten to the point now. It's sad. And you're kind of like, I'm sure you're kind of like me. You were used to the first Wednesday in February. It was a guys' national holiday. It was a wall-to-wall ESPN coverage. It was waking up at 7 a.m. to see who had flipped and changed their mind. And, and look, things evolve in life. They change. This is one thing I wish we could bring back, the nostalgia of the old craziness of signing day. Just the absolute crazy. Who was it? Willie Taggart running around the Florida State room with the spear every time they got a commitment. Just stuff like that.
I don't miss it being in February, but it would be all right if it was a little later in this month, just for the sake of the players who are trying to make these decisions as college coaches are like literally changing jobs on signing day, and will probably continue to do so for the foreseeable future. So there was that, and it's good to have like content for the website and give me something to do leading up to Christmas. But it's a lot less work for me and for the college coaches, that's for damn sure.
Well,
so I don't hate it totally.
You trust me right now with the University of South Carolina, content is not going to be of the issue moving forward, and we only have you for about 10 minutes, and then you've got a busy afternoon that you've got to get to. Let's start with the unknowns before we go to the knowns, and there's 3 large unknowns. Let's start with what you can provide on the Landon Duckworth situation. Rumors come out last night that Lane Kiffin has made overtures. This morning, I know it's not on 24/7 Sports, but this morning Steve Whitfong reports, hey, all seems fine. He's signing with South Carolina. I think you have worked with Steve at 24/7 Sports before. I know he's now with On3. He has now done his Fong bomb or whatever, reporting Duckworth likely to LSU. What can you and everybody at 24/7 Sports tell us about the latest on Landon Duckworth?
Yeah, so it was my understanding last night when I went to bed, and this was from people I talked to, at Carolina, and they felt good. And I got that confirmation like right before I think Duckworth went on the record with Chad Simmons at On3 and told him that he was signing with South Carolina. So when I woke up this morning, I had no reason to think that anything was going to change, but also I had in the back of my mind certainly that things can change until everything's signed. So yeah, here we are. There's this development, and I haven't gotten word on anything one way or the other. I know Tom Boyd with 24/7 has heard very positive things for LSU when it comes to Duckworth. One thing I do know is that, and this has been the case for a while now, is not just a new development here within the last 48 hours, but there's a prominent voice within Duckworth's circle, I guess you could say, mentor, coach type of guy who is very, very much pro LSU. And that was a factor that South Carolina was having to deal with back in the fall when Duckworth took a visit up to LSU. I think it was for the second game of the season, or their first home game. But yeah, very early on in September. So yeah, something South Carolina's had to contend with in the past, and I'm sure it's been a factor here today.
I'll ask because I got to ask. Do you think the lack of an offensive coordinator plays into this at all? Because you know, just like you get on the message boards, the over-the-top message boards, By the way, some of your responses are phenomenal. I have to give you a lot of credit. Make me giggle. What's the factor of not having an offense coordinator in this particular situation?
It can't help. I mean, Duckworth had, I guess, an announcement a couple weeks ago after Mike Schuler was fired that reaffirmed his commitment. He put something out there, and that was something that we had been expecting for quite some time, going back all the way to that visit out to LSU that I was talking about a second ago. Like, even before that was done, I was hearing that he was saying all the right things to South Carolina and telling them that he was going to reaffirm it publicly and put all that to bed from a, exterior relations standpoint. And it took a couple months to happen. So, yeah, it happened, I guess, 2-3 weeks ago, however long ago it was. And yet here we are. So lots of twists and turns with this one. Obviously, he's already decommitted once from South Carolina before. And, we've been kind of riding this roller coaster for the last couple of years with Landon Duckworth, to say the least.
I'm going to share my thoughts on that later, and I have some strong thoughts on that. Also, the fact I don't think this is a huge deal because of the transfer portal and how you can navigate this situation nowadays, as opposed to if he'd have done something like this, say, 5 or 6 years ago. When your future kind of more depends on it. Let's switch gears. I tell you what, real quick, let's stay on the offensive side. And I don't want to spend too much time with you on this. South Carolina lacks an offensive coordinator, but it looks like they may land a running back, a huge running back commitment tomorrow in Carson Baker, former Florida commit. This is a guy South Carolina's been on since day one, wanted badly, would be an upgrade over Amari Thomas. What can you tell us on 4-star running back Carson Baker?
Yeah, so we had the official visit here last weekend. He's also taken officials to North Carolina and Kentucky this season. And he was committed to Florida through all 3 of the official visits, including South Carolina's, and he decommitted from Florida Monday, I guess it was. So he's been one of those types that threw out points in his recruitment. He had several different teams that were like the one to beat. And South Carolina was one of those teams for the longest time, maybe one of the first teams that way. And some folks have come and gone in his recruitment. So, I mean, there could be some more teams to keep an eye on between now and tomorrow when he makes his decision at 10 a.m. So I would imagine there's some more twists and turns with him because that's just how it's gone throughout this recruitment. He was firm with Florida for the longest time. Then when they fired Billy Napier, that's when things started to get shaken up. And, Georgia Tech was involved with him. Like, there was a possibility he took an official to Georgia Tech or South Carolina. Obviously, he ended up coming to South Carolina last weekend. So, who knows? There's all sorts of different ways this one could go.
21 hours. 21 more hours, buddy. Just hold firm. Finally, let's get to Julian Walker. He'll make an announcement tomorrow. It seems like this is an ever-evolving situation. And quite frankly, this is one even maybe I would suggest for Julian Walker. If you don't know, we still have another signing period in February. I know you don't want to continue going through this, and the stress and the pressure and everything it puts on the family. But hell, this is a tough decision for this young man, given his family tied to the University of South Carolina, his father's position there, but obviously also committed to a very good program in Michigan.
Yeah, and it sounds like North Carolina is more of a factor than we kind of thought. Ed Adams, who works for 24/7, is picking up some buzz with the Tar Heels, and Julian visited there this season for a game. I think he was up there when they played Clemson, and he is obviously at Carolina for several games this fall, and he went to Michigan this past weekend. Was there till Sunday, so yeah. There a couple hours ago, I was under the impression that it was still sort of a 50-50 type of deal with him, but now it looks like there's a third team to consider here, and he's scheduled, or he hadn't been scheduled to have something tomorrow. It was just kind of tentatively planned. Was what I had last heard, and had also been told that a decision could be made later today, but he would announce it tomorrow at a time to be determined. But now Anna's hearing that something could be happening today with UNC. So, again, twists and turns as we do this signing day stuff here. December of 2025.
I can see where North Carolina is a fair trade-off. It's not too far like Michigan. It's not South Carolina. It would be a potential. And then obviously we'll see the Bill Belichick effect and how long he stays there. Before I let you go, we've got about a minute and a half real quick. Thoughts on what South Carolina has signed to this point?
Yeah, so Darius Gray, 5-star offensive lineman, who's been a target for this staff since he was, not even a high school player. He got the offer summer before his freshman year, and they've been recruiting him like crazy, and he could play potentially anywhere along the offensive line for Carolina. He's a 5-star for a reason, and that's something for folks to get really excited about for sure. I like what they've got at defensive tackle. There's been a lot of conversation about that position in the past, really over the last year and a half or so, when everybody knew that Tonga Hemingway and TJ Sanders and Boogie Huntley were going to be moving on. It's like, all right, they got to restock the cupboard and get more defensive tackles, and they got some pretty good ones out of the portal this past January, and they got a couple really good ones committed over the summer, and Aiden Harris and Noah Clark, both of them are from North Carolina, and I think they're really complimentary for what Carolina does. And Noah Clark, who's a big space eater in the middle, I mean, he's listed at 335, 45 pounds, so he's a large guy. Then Harris is more of a smaller three-technique type, real quick, cat-like quick guy who's very disruptive, and I think they just complement each other really well.
Yeah, go ahead. We got to hit the break. I appreciate it, Al. You have a great rest of the day. You're listening to the Halftime Show. It is 12:49 and technically 30 seconds, so we will wrap up this hour. I'm being told now, coming up at 2 o'clock today, we were scheduled to have J.C. Sherbert at 2:15. I am working to move him to tomorrow. Coming up at 2 o'clock, Shane Beamer will address the media regarding the recruiting class. I will say that I do not think we will hear on the offensive coordinator situation, but I don't know. I would imagine there's going to be a question asked about it. This will be open to the media to ask questions, and I would assume that there will be a question about it. As to what the answer is, I would expect it to be vague. I do still think that we get a decision by Friday. And as we just talked with Hal McGranahan, you might lose Landon Duckworth. Now, look, I'll say this on Duckworth. Duckworth is not a quarterback, in my opinion. I've watched a lot of highlights. I think he has a ton of upside. I think South Carolina would love to have him. You really don't want to miss on a quarterback like this. So let's be very clear. I don't think this is a LSU gave him the bag situation. LSU, who cares? He wasn't that good anyway. No. Landon Duckworth has a ton of potential, and could very well be an elite level SEC quarterback. So losing him is not good. However, and this is my opinion covering recruiting, there is a part of me that doesn't cover. Well, I don't cover recruiting anymore. But having watched situations like this, there's a part of me that thinks he has never wanted to be here. He obviously committed, decommitted, looked everywhere else. Felt like Ole Miss stopped recruiting him. Auburn took a kid. Auburn took somebody else. LSU wasn't recruiting him because they had somebody, and he was kind of like, all right, I'm going to go back and sign with South Carolina. I got a relationship. I'll sign with them. And then he took an official visit to LSU. And you just heard Hale say that there has been somebody in his camp who is very pro-LSU. And look, I get it. I'm not saying that's – I've been to the stadium. I've been around the campus. We know the history of LSU. It's not like he's choosing Southeastern Louisiana State, or I don't know, make your up. Who are the Mud Dogs? Who did Adam Sandler play for in the Mud Dogs? It's not like he's choosing some ridiculous program over South Carolina where you're just like, how did that happen? LSU is a great program, a fine program, has a quarterback whisperer for a head coach now. If he were to switch today, it just is what it is. But, and this is important, I don't think losing a quarterback like that matters like it used to. The ability to go to the transfer portal in the offseason, and we don't know who is going to be in the transfer portal just yet, what quarterback's going to leave. I mean, look, Duke, to take it for what it's worth, I don't know, ridiculous. Duke goes out and gets Tulane's Darian Mensah, and Darian Mensah has led them to the ACC championship. You might not know that because who's really paying attention to ACC football, to be dead honest. But yes, your ACC championship football game. Let me repeat, football game, not basketball, not the tournament in Greensboro, not the round ball that goes to the hoop. Your oval object football championship game for the Atlantic Coast Conference is well-known football powers Duke and Virginia. This is not J.J. Redick against Herman Moore. Herman Moore was the wide receiver. Against, one of the great Virginia players, Ralph Sampson. No, Sampson played for me. You get the point. You get the point before I make myself sound any stupider. But, yeah. But so you can lose a Landon Duckworth. Sampson did play for Virginia. You can lose a Landon Duckworth, and you can replace him. It's not the end of the world, especially given that I don't think he would be a starter next year. I don't know what the Carolina quarterback situation is going to be. It feels like it's Sellers if he comes back, Cutter Woods, or, again, a transfer portal quarterback, none of which are Landon Duckworth. But it is something to keep up with as we go through the afternoon. You heard Hale there. Stay tuned to, obviously, thebigspur.com, Gamecock Central, John Whittle, J.C. Sherbert, Hale McGranahan, Wes Mitchell, Chris Carter, all phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I've worked with all of them. At some point in my career. They are all phenomenal. They all have great sources. No one site is better than the other. Subscribe to both. They both have great input. They're both phenomenal. So stay tuned with that. You heard the Jillian Walker news. That's an interesting little turning point with North Carolina, according to Anna Adams of 24/7 Sports, now being more involved than maybe we were aware. We'll continue to monitor that throughout the day. And the running back news, Carson Baker making an announcement 10 a.m. tomorrow. And we'll have to see on that. We'll talk more about it. Coming up next, Brad Crawford of CBS Sports. Let's talk some college football playoffs. It's the halftime show. Bill Gunner for the mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder, and First Palmetto Bank. Now, unlike me, see, I just got Ralph Sampson in Virginia confused with Lynn Baez in Maryland, right? Like, I get confused on things, misspeak, do things incorrectly. That never happens with Jacob Crowder. He is on the point all the time. That is why he has been serving the Midlands for over 20 years. Also why his career has lasted longer than most of the people here at 107.5 The Game, as you hear us talk about, because he actually knows what he's talking about. That's why I used him 5 years ago, and that's why if you're thinking about building a home, buying a home, if you're thinking about remodeling or refinancing and you need some more money, well, guess what? Call Jacob Crowder, the mortgage guru, today with First Palmetto Bank, 803-719-1005. Again, it's 803-719-1005. He's the mortgage guru for a reason. Call today, find out, and tell him Bill Gunner sent you. 1 o'clock on your Wednesday, National Signing Day. Beth and Lamar says, my son used to take the day off on National Signing Day. Yeah, I'm with you. It's just different, nostalgic. I'm old, but I miss it. I miss it. I'm with Beth. Beth, I'm with your son on that. Charlie weighs in and just making sure Tyler didn't hit the transfer portal. No, he finally got a day off. Tyler deserves a day off. He definitely deserves one, so no problems for him. 803-404-6100, how you can weigh in. Thank you again to Helma Granahan in the previous hour. We'll get back into National Signing Day, but let's talk a little college football playoff right now. Last night, new rankings revealed, and the man who's on the scene and has thoughts, whether you agree with him or not, Brad Crawford of 24/7 Sports. And Mr. Crawford, welcome in. Happy National Signing Day. You're like me. I know this was a day that you grew up on where it was a special day.
Yeah, now it's the early signing period or NSD2 or however they want to call it, man. But my job now, instead of recruiting, it's all college football year-round playoff talk. So no more recruiting for me. There's
a part of you that should be very happy and very thankful for that. Well, let's talk. Number one, let me ask you this, and then we're going to go to the college football playoff. I'm sure you heard the comments. You've put out some tweets about South Carolina. I'm sure you heard the comments by Shane Beamer several weeks ago. South Carolina season was struggling. I believe it was right after the Texas A&M game. He comes out in one of his press conferences and he says, next year we'll be sitting here looking to see where we are ranked in the college football playoff. I don't think you need to say that. That's just, it's putting undue pressure on yourself. It's not necessary. And quite frankly, it's just I think it's a bad look. Your thoughts when you heard him say that, now that you're paying more attention to the college football playoff and you see things happen like Vanderbilt now having a great season, but likely on the outside looking in.
Yeah, when Shane said those words, Bill, I went right back to what Brian Kelly said at SEC Media Days over this summer. It's playoff or bust for LSU. Well, he sealed his fate by saying that, because when you don't make the playoffs at LSU, you get fired. Well, at South Carolina, obviously getting to the playoff would be historic for Beamer next season, but he obviously believes this team and his soon-to-be full coaching staff can get there. Now, I think he sort of put a lot of pressure on himself by saying that. If he goes, 4-8 again in 2026, then they're going to be looking for a new head coach. And to get to your Vanderbilt question, they've only beaten one ranked team according to the committee, and that was Tennessee over the weekend. They beat Tennessee by 21 points at Neyland. Not a lot of SEC teams have done that, over the last 10 years. But I can see where Clark Lee is upset, because in the SEC you sort of assume that a 10-win season is going to get you there, but obviously for Vanderbilt it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I just, and you look, and South Carolina was close last year. I get what Shane's trying to do, but it can go down as empty promises. And I think right now with this fan base, and you still have your finger on the pulse of this fan base, that's not a comment you want to make and put yourself in that spot in the event the next year, say end of October, you're 5-3 and not really in the discussion.
No, I was telling a friend the other day, man, that Shane Beamer doesn't do a good job of winning press conferences. And in this season, I think he could have got a lot of the fan base's good graces back had he said late in the year, this is all on me. I didn't have the best coaching staff. I didn't put in position to make the best plays to win games. But instead, he sort of beat the drum that the offense is better than what everybody says it is, and Gamecocks are a fourth-quarter team despite, the scoreboard not saying that. So Shane believes in himself, and he believes 2026 is going to be a difference-making year. But like you said, he has put a ton of pressure on his shoulders, and making those playoff comments at a program that's never made a playoff, that's a lot to ask.
He is Brad Crawford, CBS Sports. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I just saw you signed another extension with him.
I did. I am entering year 11 with CBS. Hard to believe, man.
Yeah.
I remember when I was on your show with Saturday Down South back in the day.
Yeah, congratulations. Awesome to hear. We keep you around for a long time. Let's look at last night. I guess the news of the night, Alabama now at number 9 shouldn't be punished for playing in the SEC championship game against a team they've already beaten. I'm going to assume that they're now locked in, so this now means Notre Dame is the team that it would appear could be staring from the outside in on getting into this thing?
That's correct. If you're the 10 seed, you are the final at-large selection, last team in, so to speak. And if BYU beats Texas Tech, then the Cougars make it easy on the committee. Notre Dame's out, BYU's in, and you have your top 12. Now, I think where a chaos scenario could happen is the whole 11 seed. Is it going to go to Virginia? If UVA beats Duke in the ACC championship game, then obviously it's pretty chalk. Virginia's 11, and then the winner of Tulane, North Texas is 12. But if Duke wins that game, potentially James Madison as the 12-1 Sun Belt champion, we're going to have 2 G5 teams out of 12 in this bracket, and you're going to hear a lot of animosity and anger from a bunch of power conference commissioners.
You look at this thing, let me ask you this, because as I watched last night, something stood out to me and what I realized I'm going to dislike, and it's just part of it. When we get to these, I don't want to see rematches. Now, it's a thing of it's just part of it, right? Like, I don't like conference on conference vengeance in the NCAA tournament when you get to the second and third round. I like to see different conferences play different conferences, just a weird piece. But last night in the opening round, we were seeing particular games, Oklahoma, Alabama, and what was the other one? I don't have the actual pairings right in front of me, but Oklahoma, Alabama, and Texas A&M, if Notre Dame were to get in, rematches. I don't want to see that. I know that that's kind of how it plays out. That's not particularly what I would care to see, though, right, if that were to play out?
Oh, I totally agree with you. And, I mean, there's a chance, Bill, that we might see, Indiana, Ohio State happen twice in a month's time. They play Saturday night. They could probably face off in the semifinal depending on how Saturday night goes. I mean, I don't like rematches either. I think the committee has done a good job over the years of avoiding rematches. I mean, there was a chance that if Ole Miss would have been 7 last night, maybe Oklahoma finishes 10. That's another rematch, Oklahoma against Ole Miss. Nobody wants to see that. So, but as a fan of college football, I can see where the Greg Sankeys and, Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, I can see why they're harping on multiple teams from Power 5s getting in over G5s because, man, there's a chance in mid-December that we're going to have 2 out of 4 first-round games with, 20-point spreads.
One other one from last night, BYU. And BYU, I don't know where BYU stood. You get the news during the day, hey, Kalani Sitake's probably going to stay, which that's a whole other discussion for a whole other day about, good job, Penn State. Where are you going now? But Kalani Sitake's going to stay. Great. Now it does look like BYU has to win their conference championship to get in. Are you with me on that?
They're in a play-in scenario, and that's where you want to be final week of the season. I mean, obviously, winner take all, control your own destiny. Teams like Notre Dame and Miami do not control their own destiny, and Notre Dame's in the bracket right now. So if BYU beats Texas Tech, then we're going to see 2 bids from the Big 12. You're not going to see Texas Tech lose Saturday and then fall out of the bracket completely. So if I'm Marcus Freeman, I'm a little bit worried. And obviously, if I'm Mario Cristobal, the head coach at Miami, I'm starting to think that maybe we have a shot if Texas Tech blows out BYU.
Again, Brad Crawford joining us, CBS Sports. So you just mentioned the teams that are kind of on the outside looking in at this point. Let's remove Notre Dame from the discussion for no, throw them in. Let's pretend that they're in this discussion. Notre Dame in this discussion. Utah technically is at 13, but Notre Dame, Miami, Vanderbilt. You can throw another one in there. Who is the best team that's about to get left out? Who has the most deserving case that, in your opinion, gets left out?
Miami has the most deserving case, and Miami's going to get left out. Now, the only way that changes is if for the first time this season, Bill, the committee takes into account the head-to-head win over Notre Dame, because the last 4 rankings, Notre Dame has been ranked ahead of Miami despite Miami winning that game. Now, there's a large collection of national media guys that think if BYU loses and Miami slides right behind Notre Dame, that all of a sudden the committee's going to change its mind. But I just don't see that. That would make all of these Tuesday night national ranking shows a complete farce if Miami slide ahead of Notre Dame. So I think the Canes are the best team in the country that will be on the outside looking in.
Mississippi State at number 6 last night. Now, I know it's apples to oranges, complete apples to oranges, 4 teams to 12, but a precedent was set years ago with Florida State without their quarterback winning the ACC championship. They did play a game with, I forget the guy's name who led them to that, but they were left out of a 4-team playoff. Again, apples to oranges, I get that, a lot of different things. Should have Mississippi been dropped substantially last night, maybe even out, now that they will not have their head coach, who is, well, a large part of who they are?
Yeah, I think that FSU quarterback was Tate Rodemaker. Is that right? Maybe that might have been him, or Glenn, or Jordan. That was
Travis
crazy.
was the one that got hurt.
Yeah, I don't know why Florida State got left out. Obviously, ESPN might have known that was Saban's, last hurrah, and Bama got that bid. But to get to your Ole Miss question, I think Ole Miss did everything it could Sunday afternoon to maintain that first round 6 or 7 seed status. And what I mean by that is promoting Pete Golding. That showed the committee that this coaching staff wasn't going to change all that much, and obviously it helped yesterday afternoon before the rankings came out that Charlie Weiss Jr. returned to Oxford, and he's going to see it through. So I think this Ole Miss team is still dangerous without Lane Kiffin. I don't think it's going to win a first-round playoff game, but if Ole Miss stays at 6 Sunday and they play like James Madison in the first round, then yeah, Trinidad Chambers and the Rebels should be moving on.
You look at the bracket right now, who would be your favorite to win the national championship going in? If this was the bracket, if we're all set, who do you go? Ohio State, Indiana. And I remember, again, you mentioned they'd have to probably play each other, I believe, the second round. I believe is about how it would work out or something like that. Who would you have? Who would you have as you sit here now after the last nights? Who do you have as winning this now tournament if this is what it is?
Ohio State is my projected champion unless Ohio State loses to a 9 or 10 ranked Notre Dame in the second round. That's the worry here, because last year I think Oregon was the favorite to win it all, but they had to play a very good Ohio State team in the second round, and they got blown out in Pasadena. So you kind of have to wonder, if you're a 1 or a 2 seed in this thing, how does this bracket set up the rest of the way? That's very important. But I like Ohio State, man. Not only are they good offensively, but they got one of the best defenses in the country, too.
Yeah, not that Michigan's world beaters, but they handled that game fairly easily. They've handled everybody else fairly easily. I thought that lack of strength of schedule made me question them, but they're doing their job. I kind of had Indiana at number 1, but Ohio State kind of this weekend, the way they just went in and handled Michigan, didn't let anything mental get to them. I'd have them at 1. I kind of agree with you. I think they're probably the best team in the country. Real quick, Georgia's odds. Georgia's sitting at number 3 right now. They're kind of, for a Georgia team, I got about 30 seconds. They're kind of flying under the radar, I feel like.
They are. They're probably the SEC's best team, but I would take the field this year before I took the SEC winning a championship. I think the Big Ten probably goes for 3 in a row.
Brad, always appreciate it. A lot of great insight into that, and we will be catching up with you sometime late into December to get your thoughts as we get closer to the new year and where things stand, man. Enjoy the rest of signing day and keeping up with you, and congratulations on that extension.
Hey, thank you, man. Good to hear from you.
Take care. Brad Crawford of 24/7 Sports there joining, CBS. He was with, but he's now CBS Sports 24/7, I believe, same thing. Halftime show rolls along when we come back. It is 1:30. Again, coming up in about 40 minutes, we're going to carry for you live right here on the show. We're going to carry Shane Beamer's recruiting press conference to hear what he has to say as it pertains to the recruiting class. I do feel confident a question will be asked, probably one of the first questions, about the offensive coordinator situation. As a matter of fact, as I sit here and think about it, and having been a part of some of these press conferences, there's not a great deal to talk about when it comes to the recruiting class. It's a small recruiting class for South Carolina, and that's a good thing. I don't think that that's a bad thing. And as a matter of fact, in this day and age, for those of us who are closer to my age, 43, and in our 40s, maybe in our early 50s, and we're so accustomed to this concept of signing a 25-person signing class, or as Houston Nutt used to do, a 47-person class and send 22 of them to JUCO or whatever he used to do. That was when he was at Mississippi, and he had wild standards of how he did things, if people remember that. But I think it's perfectly fine. You go for if you see a guy that is a potential 3 or 4 year player, but that player is willing to wait out that 3 or 4 years, right? Because you don't want to waste time, investment, money recruiting, maybe NIL money on a player who in the high school system, quite honestly, needs development. I mean, the way that works is if you're looking at a kid now and you're like, well, we love his potential, but he's probably 3 years away. He's probably a redshirt year away, and then he's not going to play his redshirt freshman year, and then by his sophomore year, maybe he's contributing a couple snaps, and then, okay, his redshirt junior year, he could be a starter. You may as well be like, hey, buddy, go to Coastal. No offense to Coastal. Go to Troy. You get where I'm going with this. Go to Charlotte. Build yourself up, and then we'll take you back in a few years. It used to be you'd go, say, hit the junior college ranks, but now, if there's a player that's a developmental player, do you want that person, or do you want to go hit the recruiting portal to meet your overall scholarship limit numbers? That player in the scholarship portal has been in college for a few years, has been through a college nutrition program, a strength and conditioning program. Even if they're at a smaller school, at least they've played in college. They understand the work ethic and the time constraints, and they understand, as opposed to bringing in, a player. And you think about South Carolina, you think about some of the guys that in the past South Carolina's brought in, under the radar guys. In this day and age, I'm not sure South Carolina would have brought in Captain Munnerlyn, a lowly rated recruit out of the state of Alabama. That was obviously a good find of talent. I can't remember who the exact recruiter of record was, whether it was Ron Cooper or not. But I'm not sure South Carolina would have taken a Captain Munnerlyn. Byron McKnight, who ended up being a solid player, wasn't a great player, wasn't by any means a guy that stands out, as one of the great all-time defensive ends. But Byron McKnight was a little bit part of the Travian Robertson package. But in this day and age, you might be like, oh, Byron, go to East Carolina for a few years. Go to Charlotte, and then we'll evaluate you at that point. And let's be honest, those conversations happen. You're naive if you don't think South Carolina's looking, or Georgia or Florida or any school, Clemson, and it's like, go if you really like us, sign that scholarship with Georgia Southern or Georgia State or so forth and so on. Go play a little college ball, and I tell you what, in a year or two, we might have a spot for you. Because, what do you think, 90%? 95%? Is it 100% of the kids that go to those schools, that go to a Sun Belt or AAC or a CAA school, if given the opportunity to transfer to a SEC or even an ACC program, you think they're going to turn it down? Heck no, they're not. They might get here for 1 year and realize, well, it didn't work. By the way, Gamecocks today, looks like Nick Sharp, offensive lineman, has entered the transfer portal. That is at least what I am seeing reported. I don't internet what's true and what's not. We're still playing that really fun game. But with all that being said, that's why I don't mind a small recruiting class. And yes, South Carolina took some guys that are still developmental players. Anthony Baxter from South Point is an offensive lineman that, probably, I never say never, but probably needs some developing, needs some strength and conditioning programs. And if you find a guy who says, yeah, coach, I'm willing to wait it out. If you find a guy who is like, yeah, coach, I know I need to redshirt next year. I know that my redshirt freshman year, I'm probably still not playing. Well, then, okay, I think you take that guy. I think you take a chance with him. South Carolina's not in a position in any way, shape, or means to take a 25-man recruiting class where, and this is South Carolina recruiting, where 12 of them are guys you're going, boy, I hope in 3 years they pan out. Because let me tell you, that'll be a new coach working with those guys in 3 years. You got to hit the transfer portal. The Gamecocks got to hit the transfer portal. That's 10 times far more important for them this year to take 20. Yeah, that's a large number, 25 plus transfers. I realize that's a large number. No, I don't particularly like it. I don't like flipping your roster like that. It doesn't work far more often than it does work. But that's the do or die situation that the Gamecocks find themselves in. But you look at the class and what they're bringing in, and it does look like, at least on paper, you've got guys. Now I don't know, Darius Gray, 5-star offensive lineman. In an ideal world, he's not ready to contribute next year, but who knows? If you think you can figure out the South Carolina offensive line, not only explain it to me, then go buy you and I the same Powerball tickets, please. I beg of you. Noah Clark, big defensive lineman, 6. I've given up on giving weights and numbers here because these things magically change when they arrive on campus. But Noah Clark, supposed to be 6'4", 320. He'll show up and be 6'2", 280. Aiden Harris, supposed to be a guy who can come in and make an impact. Zion Giles, another offensive lineman. Maybe needs a redshirt year, just one, and then he's ready to go. Kosi Barnes is a defensive back. We've seen defensive backs that come in and are ready to play, can be ready to play right away, and South Carolina may have to replace a large portion of their secondary. We already know about DQ Smith. Who knows what happens with Judge Collier? Who knows what happens with Brandon Cisse? Who knows? I'm under the assumption Jalen Kilgore's going pro. You very well could be replacing 4 dudes back there. Glancing down the list, KJ Johnson out of Alabama, another defensive back. Again, you never know with those guys. Caden Ramsey's kind of more of a project, younger guy. But again, does he understand, hey, I need a redshirt year, and then, maybe my freshman year I'm ready to play? These are the guys that are signed, by the way. These are the guys that are in the class. You now know there'll be a Gamecock. So that's my feelings on it. That's where I stand with this recruiting class. Okay, you're taking a small class. It's perfectly fine because now if we sit here in February and we look at that transfer portal class, and we got questions, you go, oh boy, didn't go well. The transfer class is what's going to make or break Shane Beamer in the 2020-16 team. Of course, we got to see who stays on, obviously. Are you holding on to Fred Johnson, to Justin Okoronkwo? Are you holding on to a Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy on the interior, who I thought played well as the season went on, played better? Are you holding on, obviously, to a Dylan Stewart, to a Brian Rowe, to a Nick Harbor? You get the point. There's a lot of guys there. That's where now recruiting has exponentially changed, and what takes a little bit of the luster off it today. Come back. We'll get back into basketball from last night. Huge game, and South Carolina drops it. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner from Mid-State Roofing, where for 30 years, long time. I'm 43 and I feel old. 30's not much further younger than me. 30 years, Mid-State Roofing has been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. And here's the thing about that. You don't do it by just simply doing a good job. You do it because of your customer service. You're the leader because of customer service. Now, Mid-State Roofing's phenomenal at what they do. They build and install bonded systems with a protective guarantee that keeps your home or your business dry and running long into the future. But the key there is they are there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't know if you're aware of this. Leaks do not tell time. They don't know when it happens, so you better be prepared to have a leak at midnight, at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. But if you call Mid-State Roofing, 803-356-1919, they'll be there to help you. Do that today and tell them Bill Gunner sent you. $1:35 on your afternoon. It's like a lot of signing day. Trying to kind of keep up here just to see if anything. There are some flips happening across college football Doesn't look like anything major. I think Clemson lost one to Ohio State. It was a 3-star safety. Vanderbilt has been in the running to flip a couple guys. Of course, the big news yesterday. By the way, just an interesting situation yesterday. And I've been in this field, and I had a situation with Michael Carrera once that went kind of sideways. Actually, the same thing with Tamarcus Blanton, so maybe it was me. I don't know. But when a player tells you something, Jared Curtis put out something last night. He has officially flipped to Vanderbilt. I don't know if he signed yet or not, but he's officially flipped to Vanderbilt from Georgia. Good for him. Hometown kid, one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the country, top 3, depending on which ranking you look at. Staying home, playing for Vanderbilt, taking the role of Diego Pavia. No pressure there, Jared. But good for him. But apparently, people jumped the gun on social media yesterday. The best job I ever had, I worked for ESPN for Paul Biancardi. And this was ESPN's philosophy, at least the way I was working for him. It might not be what they tell Adam Schefter or whoever else they work for him. Don't break the story. Get the story right. I was working with ESPN doing basketball recruiting. They said, don't break the story. Get the story right. Make sure it's accurate. Once you put it out there, people are going to think we broke it anyway. Now, times have changed. That was pre-2010, 2011, I think. Things are a lot different. Twitter wasn't as popular back then. I don't think there was I don't even know when Instagram came alive and YouTube the way it is now. All these things were different. But I loved it. And then I went to work at 24/7 Sports with Shannon Terry, and I would have, literal nightmares of going to the store without my cell phone. Literally, I would have rather gone to the store, sorry for the image, naked, than I would have to have gone to Publix without my cell phone. It was not the way to live life. I will just tell you that. At that time, I was married, and we couldn't go to dinner without my cell phone being present next to my dinner plate. And that was not. I remember having to break a recruiting story, a basketball. South Carolina got commitments when my son was being born in 2012 in the hospital. That was not a way to live, and it was. But that was the name of the game. That's how you built that stuff. How you build it. It's changed a little bit these days. And I say all that because yesterday a couple of different sources put out that Jared Curtis had flipped already from Georgia to Vanderbilt. And Jared Curtis put out a statement last night. I saw it this morning, but I think he put it out last night. It was basically kind of admonishing the media for putting that out there without his consent. Now you can say, well, listen, Jared, this is big boy. This is big boy football. This is big boy media. But in what he said, he basically says he had not even told his family. What's true and what's not, I don't know. But that he had not told the coaches, he had not told his family, and he was very angry at the fact that somebody had gone ahead. The thing says, I was really disappointed to see some media put it out there that I flipped from Georgia to Vanderbilt. I actually had not told anyone of my final decision, not even my parents or agent. Love how there's an agent in there. I wanted to talk to the coaches from both staffs after school and practice were over and have one last heart-to-heart with my family before making an announcement. I never had a chance, and that was really disappointing. I haven't said much the past couple months. Obviously, there's been a lot going on, but I just wanted to control what I could on the field and focus on winning another, he says, chip. Could have put championship, but whatever, with my boys, and that's what we've been preparing to do on Thursday. And then he basically goes on to admit, okay, I'm switching from Georgia to Vanderbilt. But it's a different brand, man. And but that's the big flip. That's as Clark Griswold yelled, that's the big one. Jared Curtis has flipped and will expect to go in and be the savior in Nashville next year, as we assume. At this point, don't assume anything, right? But we assume that Diego Pavia is finally out of eligibility. And I'll admit, just give him a Heisman and send him on his way. Let him go do Heisman commercials with whatever car company. They just please get this guy number one away from South Carolina for that. We don't play Vanderbilt next year, but please get this guy out of college football. 803-404-6100. I wanted to talk some men's basketball. Let's go to the phone lines. Barry wants to weigh in. Barry, how you doing? You want to talk some men's basketball. What's on your mind?
All right. Well, like we talked a week or so ago about the non-conference schedule, correct? And you said that Paris set it up to mix around, play with the guys and this and that. And, at that time, Mr. Head over there said something about being hypothetical. So now we're sitting at, 5-3, correct, Bill? 5-3.
That is,
so
yes.
let's say they run out, including beating Clemson. That puts them at 10-3 non-conference, correct?
If they were to run it out.
10-3. Yeah, if they run out 10-3. Of which 8 of those wins would be quad 4 wins, correct, Bill?
Say that again. Would be what quad?
8 of those were quad 4 wins.
Yeah, I don't know what where they're at now. You're probably right. I don't. I would assume so based on what I just know.
And then you would get the 1 with Clemson, so you get 1 quad 1 win. And so basically, what I'm saying is, what kind of at 10-3 with 8 wins over quad 4s and 1 quad 1 win, what do you think it's going to take in the SEC for them to make the NCAA playoffs?
I mean, if you go in conference, you said go 10-3, right?
Yeah, 10-3 with 8 against quad 4.
If you did that and you're 9-9 in conference, that's 19-12, but you've got a 500 record. If you've got a 500 record in conference, I would, and you know how the tournament committee works. There's a lot that goes to it.
Right.
The last 10 games can be decisive. The last 5 can really be decisive. But let's hypothetically say they go 9-9. I think they're in the tournament. 19-12, a 500 record in the SEC, which is likely to be number 1 or number 2 in the conference RPI. 9-9, you'd probably be in the tournament. Probably, I say. I'm kind of ballparking. It does depend on some of your wins. Do you pick up a big win over I didn't look at the polls. I know Kentucky lost last night. I don't know who. Do you beat, let's say, a Florida late in the season? Are you looking better? There's a little bit more to your question, but I'll just, to make it a short answer, 9-9 would be what I think you got to get to, because I don't see the committee leaving a 500 SEC team out, even with what you're saying about the quad 4 wins.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for the phone call. 803-404-6100. Yeah, the SEC gives you leeway right now. But we're learning about this team, and I'm not sure that they've played I'm not sure that Butler, Northwestern, or Virginia Tech is better than any of the other 15 SEC teams. I truthfully have not seen LSU play yet. I've not seen haven't seen Oklahoma play yet, although I know Oklahoma stomped Wake Forest last night. It was like a 2-point game at halftime, and Oklahoma ripped away in that one. I believe they're supposed to be better. Anyway, that's probably what it would take at 10-3. That's probably what it would take, but we'll see. We'll come back, finish up the hour with the basketball talk. I'll let you listen to Lamont Paris and then Shane Beamer coming up here in about 15 minutes. You're listening to the Halftime Show. South Carolina does have Captain Davis provided me with the information. 3 new official signings. One of them is actually pretty big, not that there was any question, but Xavier Currents, the safety out of Rock Hill, who out of South Point, out of Rock Hill, South Carolina, but out of South Point High School, would be a guy, as I was kind of mentioning, that would step in next year. I think actually in this day and age, you're looking at to come in and be a day one starter. And as I mentioned, South Carolina losing DQ Smith back there. Also, we'll see what happens with the likelihood of Judge Collier, Brandon Cisse, Jalen Kilgore. Kilgore, I've seen a lot of first-round projections for him. I don't that's Patrick Perrett's area of expertise, and we should really bring him back and get an early projection on what he thinks about Cisse and Judge Collier. Collier was getting a lot of love early on, and did not have. I think it's fair to say Collier did not have a good junior season. So I would assume maybe he needs to come back for a senior season, but money talks. People around people talk. You start believing one thing, and the next thing you know, off they go. But Xavier Currents is officially now a Gamecock and will enroll next month. And of this recruiting class is the guy that I look to make the biggest impact as a freshman right off the bat. And he is officially on the books now for South Carolina. And again, Darius Gray, 5-star offensive lineman, it's great. I don't know if a 5-star offensive, I really don't know if you want a 5-star offensive lineman showing up in the SEC and being like, all right, young fella, get on in there and start blocking that defensive lineman there from Oklahoma just yet, or Alabama. So with that being said, Xavier Currents, who I think will be the guy next year that we look at. Now, I'm sure there'll be a breakout guy here or there that comes out of nowhere that we're talking about as a freshman. Brian Rowe, we thought might be that guy early on, kind of disappeared down the stretch. But Xavier Currents now officially in the books. Last night, South Carolina drops that game to Virginia Tech. Again, not a must-win per se, because as we just mentioned with Barry, like if they hypothetically went 9-9 in conference, well, they got to win out. Losing to Clemson up there, I mean, they will not be favored at Little John against the Tigers. Tigers have a fun game tonight. I will be tuned in to watch them. They travel to Alabama tonight in the SEC ACC Challenge, and if you've listened and you know I'm a huge Brad Burnell fan, I know that I'm in the mind. This is where apparently, again, even though last year he had a great run, or was it 2 years ago he had the great run? Last year they lost to Morehead State, or they lost to Will Wade, but I'm a Brad Burnell fan. Tried one time to get a Clemson pullover from him, and was told that Frank Martin would never let me wear a Clemson pullover around here. But I'm a big Brad Burnell fan as a human being and as a coach. But so I'm excited about that game tonight. But South Carolina going up there is going to be extremely, extremely difficult. And with that being said, don't see South Carolina favored in the Clemson game. For whatever reason, in 2 of the 3 years, Lamont Paris has had Clemson's number. That one I've yet to kind of face. It's funny that in the 2 years South Carolina was bad, they've beat Clemson. The 1 year that they were really good, they didn't get the job done at Little John, and maybe that's because it was up there. But if you remember that game, South Carolina held on to a lead for the majority of that game and blew it down the stretch. But last night, you get the opportunity against Virginia Tech. You've got the ball at the very end of the game in a tie game. In a tie game, you can take a half-court shot. Nobody will say a word about it. We won't think it's a good shot. Here is Lamont Paris. Again, this is Captain Dave number 2, him talking about the end of regulation.
But yeah, so then we got a stop. We got the ball down on the last possession in regulation, and I was going to call a timeout, but I saw Michi had bounce in his step, and he wanted it. He looked like he wanted it. He's done it for us before. He looked like he wanted it. So I'm normally play live guy. I am. I like to play live. I don't want substitutions happening. I don't want somebody switching to zone. I don't want them blitzing the ball screen.
Right.
I just like to play. If you have guys that play, I like to play. And, we just got a little frazzled. We lost the ball. I think we bobbled the ball a little bit, and then just didn't end up getting something.
Just opportunities, and it's early in the year. We're 8 games in. But with that being said, that was one last night. You really, at home, you had to kind of have that when Virginia Tech was playing without one of their better players. I think going into last night, again, I don't pay as much attention to quad 1 and quad 2 and quad 3 this early in the season because they change so rapidly with big games and then games against lesser opponents and so forth and so on. But I believe last night Virginia Tech was classified as a quad 3 game. Now, again, because they might have moved up. We'll start looking at those particular rankings. Not that I think it's going to matter, but we'll start looking at them in January. And again, there will be a lot to decipher, a lot to break down with this basketball team because of some potential decisions that may have to be made. We'll come back. Shane Beamer should be set to talk. You're listening to the Halftime Show. It is 1 o'clock, and it is 2 o'clock, and we wait patiently here. I'm trying to get the video up, and we'll wait patiently for Shane Beamer to take to the podium, scheduled to be there any minute. We'll carry for you live right here his signing day press conference, where he will talk about the players that have now put pen to paper and faxed over. No faxing. Oh, well. Poor fax machines. They had their day and place and time. But Gamecocks, the brand new Gamecock class, and as I mentioned going into the break there in the previous hour, is Xavion Currents, who, if I look at this recruiting class, of the guys that I would say right now that I know about, that we know about, that are coming in, Currents would be the guy that I'm going, okay, that's likely to be the guy that you look at as a day one starter. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but I am saying that that's the guy that you would look at as being like, all right, probably the guy who comes in and makes the most immediate impact. Defensive lineman, Noah Clark. Noah Clark's listed, according to 24/7 Sports, as the number 132 player overall, the number 18 defensive tackle, and the number 10 player in the state of North Carolina. He's listed at 6'4", 345. Again, we will see if that is when they actually get him here, what he's. I think Xavier McLeod went from something like 6'5", 325 to 6'3", 280 officially at South Carolina. So those weights and heights can be a tad exaggerated. I think Preston said one time in one of his initial ones he was something around 6'3", 315, and at South Carolina, I believe when he arrived, he said he was 6 foot 285, I believe is what he said. You'd have to ask him on the morning show, but he can also vouch for high school measurements and weights, not measuring up to whatever the actual college stuff does. But looking at South Carolina's class, Aiden Harris is another defensive lineman. He's technically listed at 6'3.5", 245. And is considered an interior guy, I believe. I should have asked Hale McGranahan. I believe that's a very old weight on him. All right, we got Beamer live over at the podium. We go to him now, talking to the recruiting class.
All right, thanks everyone for coming out. Certainly today is a great day. We got better today as a football team. There's no question about it. Really fired up about not just the talent of the players that we've brought in, but the kind of people they are. We've brought some big-time players in today that we signed, and we've brought in some big-time people in addition to that. Everybody looks at signing classes and the number of guys that you sign. This is not a huge class, but if you talk about quality over quantity, we absolutely hit the mark on that. Everybody's got their different rankings, but I think I said this Saturday after the game in regards to average star rating. This is a top 10 class in the nation, and we're not done yet as we finish up. These guys are big-time people, as I said. We had certainly a tough year on the field, but most games when I came in the locker room or I got done in the press conference with you guys after the game, usually when I pulled out my phone, the first text messages I had after the game were from these guys because they believe in what we're doing. Their families, I usually would hear from their moms and dads as well, and they believe in what we're doing and they know how close we are and they want to be a part of this without a doubt. So, 9 of these guys will be here with us in January when we start spring practice. Could be, could be more as we go down the list, but that's the ones that we're able to talk about right now. We signed the number 1 player by 2 different services, 2 different number 1 players in the state of South Carolina. So as you guys know, we always want to start in the state of South Carolina. Always have and always will as long as I'm the head coach here. And we signed a couple of different services have a different number 1 guy. We signed the number 1 guy from multiple services, which I'm fired up about. We always want to go into North Carolina. When I got here, I realized that we did not have enough players on the state from North Carolina. Nick Barrett was committed to come here when I got hired, and I believe he was the only one. And I said, that's crazy that we don't have anybody from North Carolina. So we made a major point of emphasis to recruit North Carolina, and we've been able to do that by signing 4 guys from the state of North Carolina that we had to beat everybody in the country out for. And then to be able to go into Alabama and make an impact, to sign the #1 player in the state of Virginia that we beat everybody in the country out for, is something that we're really proud of. Without a doubt. You like guys, I like guys that play multiple sports. So many of these guys are multiple sport athletes, whether it be basketball, whether it be track, and then guys who play both ways. You watch a lot of these guys in their high school video, they're playing offense and defense both, and the more you can do, the better. There's no question. So really, really proud to have these guys as Gamecocks right now. There's a lot of work that went into signing these guys. I feel like, Darius Gray, I've been recruiting since I got here as the head coach, and a lot of trips to Richmond, Virginia. The bye week of 2024, I was in Richmond. The bye week of 2025, I was in Richmond. High school basketball games that I've been to, but he's just an example of, someone that you spend years and years recruiting, and it's pretty cool to see it all come together today and celebrate these families and all their hard work. So many people to thank. First of all, the high school coaches. I've been in all these guys' high schools, and so many of them to thank as we culminate the signing class today. Their work and their willingness to help us as coaches here at South Carolina. Darren Usher heads up everything from a recruiting standpoint. Darren's done an amazing job. He and his team with Brian Bachman and Brandon Middleton and Sam Survey, who's done an unbelievable job, particularly with these offensive linemen, getting them in here. Jessica Jackson and Allie Brokaw head up our on-campus recruiting team, and then all the people that work with them. And when you're bringing guys in on visits and their families, there's so many people that are involved. It's not just if David comes here on a visit that it's just me and the position coach with David. If we're recruiting David, it's so many people. It's academics, it's the weight room, it's the training room, it's Joe and video, it's the nutrition department, it's the equipment department, it's Justin King and his team when it comes to photo shoots and all that. I mean, official visits and unofficial visits, it's a team effort, and there's so many people to thank, and I can't even, I'm sure I missed somebody, but everybody that contributed to this day, we appreciate you, because there's a lot of people that contributed to this day. And as we go forward, I'm sick about the season that we just had. Pissed off that I'm not walking out of this press conference and going back down the hall to start getting ready for the SEC championship game. That when we walked out of Atlanta back in August after the Virginia Tech win, fully expected to be back there this week playing in the championship game. And I'm happy that or not happy, I'm happy that I'm here about signing day. I'm livid that we're not getting ready for the championship game. And the players on this team feel that way too. I've been having exit meetings all week with guys. I've got about 40 to go over the next 2 days. Been meeting with guys since Monday, and they've been extremely, extremely, extremely positive. They're extremely hungry about 2026. They are adamant, just like I am, that we need to get the right guys in this locker room, and guys that may not be the right fit in that locker room, then they won't be here in 2026. And we're hard at work on getting the right people in the locker room and on that bus as we go into 2026. Our guys know that we went toe-to-toe with the best teams in the nation this season, and return a core group of talented guys and older guys that will be leaders on this team next season. It sucked going through this past season, but we will be so much better in 26 because of what we went through just now in 25, and we'll finish up those meetings with these guys this week, but can't wait to get started. Already have started, but can't wait to get everybody back here in January and get going on the 2026 football team. So, questions you guys have?
Shane, I believe just from the early commitment list, there's 3 guys that are yet to be confirmed or announced. Any concern with those 3 guys that have been announced?
I do not. Signing days an adventure, particularly there's a lot of different factors at play nowadays, but you never rest easy, but feel good about everyone that was committed, everybody that we were recruiting, David, going into today. And every young man has to make the decision that's best for them, but I don't. And that's the thing, and I know I alluded to it in the opening statement, but a lot of you guys are calling these recruits and asking them, like, why are y'all, you still committed to South Carolina? They're having a tough season, all that stuff. And they did. We kept this group intact, and we signed the ones that we wanted to sign out of this group, and really fired up about the people they are, the commitment to South Carolina that they have, and what they're about. Because it would have been very easy to say, man, South Carolina's not having the season on the field that we want. Let me look elsewhere. And that did not happen with this class. And we went out and signed a really solid group of people.
You mentioned the size of the class and quality over quantity. Was that a conscious decision that you had made, I guess, in the year leading up to this?
Not necessarily. I think you go into you go into every year saying these are the ideal number that you would sign at each position. Quarterback, running back, tight end. Okay, we're losing these guys. We think we need, for example, 17 offensive linemen is like our target number that we always want to have on the roster. We want to have 17 scholarship offensive linemen at all times. And you could look at who may be graduating, who may be leaving, and that's how you kind of project how many linemen you want to sign. So you go into it, here's our numbers, and we wanted to sign somebody at every position without a doubt. But what the portal has done, and again, we're always going to start with high school recruiting, and I want to build it with high school recruiting like we've done with, Nikki Eman-Wari, and like we've done with Josiah Thompson and Lenora Sellers or whoever, sign guys from the high school ranks and develop them. But what the portal has done is if you get to the point where you say, okay, these were our top 4 guys at this position and they've decided to go elsewhere, you can say, okay, are we better off going to try and find the guy that, maybe wasn't in our top 4 that's a high school senior? Or are we better off going to find somebody from the portal? And we didn't go into it saying that it was going to be, a smaller class. It's just we want to get the right guys here. We want to bring guys in here, Jordan, that can help us win an SEC championship and a national championship. And as we looked at the recruiting board, if we found somebody that couldn't help us win a championship, we weren't going to bring them into the program.
I wanted to ask you about the defensive line guys, Aiden and Noah Clark. What stood out about those guys in this recruiting process?
Yeah, one from the state of North Carolina. They, great energy, both those guys. Size, when you talk about Noah, you talk about a guy that has got size and athleticism and can really be a force in the middle as a run stopper, but can rush the passer. That stands out. With Aiden, same thing. Disruptive and bigger guy that can be very active. And we've lost a lot of defensive linemen here in the last couple seasons. When you talk about the 4 that left after last year, Jules, TJ Tonka, and Boogie, and then this year with Nick and Monkel leaving out of here, that was a position that we said, man, we've got to remake that defensive line. And those are two really good places to start. And I love their energy. I mean, those were usually, Aiden was one of the first people to usually send me a text after a game. Noah, I'll always remember him because I was, walking on the beach with my family at Kiowa back in July when he made his commitment announcement, and I'm the guy on the beach screaming and yelling when he committed to be a Gamecock because I was watching it on my phone. So I'll always remember him, and just great people too. Good young men that I always enjoy visiting with.
With the 11 who have signed and 3 commits are waiting to get signed officially, what's the general number beyond those guys that you guys are kind of looking at possibly adding to the class?
In addition to 3 that haven't signed that we think may sign?
In addition to the 14 commitments or signees, however.
Really nobody. There's the ones that have signed, and there's the, however many, 2, 3 that people are still talking about that haven't signed. But after that, no one really from the high school ranks, if that's what you're asking. That's where we are. We're full speed ahead on the rest of the roster because the other thing that comes into play is how many scholarships you have available. And right now we're still at 85, and there's some other conferences that have more than 85 available. We don't in the SEC, so we're capped at 85. And as you look at the roster, yeah, you're having exit meetings and you got guys that got decisions to make in regards to their future, but you can't, we can't be above 85 as it stands here today. So we've got to we'll attack the portal here, and that's what we're already hard at work on getting ready for. But, unless something changes, that's it from a high school standpoint. The rest of the roster will be supplemented with portal additions.
How has the OC search been going so far? And has the urgency increased now seeing that schools like Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon are all in the market now. Texas A&M are all in the market now for OCs as well.
Where's that? Oh, Alabama's guy went to Oregon State.
Co-OC.
Yeah, co-OC. And then yes and no. I mean, I think it was already, there was a sense of urgency. I'm not going to rush it, though, just to say that I hired an offensive coordinator. I'm going to make sure I get this thing right. I realize it's a critical hire. The process has gone really well, Jack. I've had some really good conversations with people that, going back for, a couple weeks that I've had some conversations with and hope that, not hope, I know we're kind of coming down the stretch on that. There's factors at play. All these offensive coordinators that are interested in potentially coming to South Carolina, they have a signing day today too. So they had their focus on signing day and their own teams, and certainly want to be respectful of that, but have had some really good conversations with the guys and a lot of interest in this position, and hopefully we can get down the stretch and finalize this thing here soon. But again, I'm not gonna rush it either, just to say we hired a coordinator by the weekend. And again, as I've told many people, we're going to get the best guy in here, and whether that's within this staff or whether that's from the outside, we've got some hires to make, and there's a lot of flexibility we have in regards to what we do on who's the offensive coordinator in 2026.
Just for clarity's sake, so the 3 publicly committed guys who have not yet signed, you're expecting those 3 who have publicly committed to you to sign? Because there's been some reporting about one of them that might throw some doubt.
Yeah, I can't analyze guys that I can't talk about. All I can tell you is we've had conversations with their families last night, this morning, and, until people are signed, people are signed. But to clarify what I said, I feel optimistic and feel good about the guys that haven't signed, and want the guys that want to be here. And if somebody decides not to come and doesn't want to be here, then that's obviously an opportunity for us to go replace them with someone else that does, is how I look at it too.
And besides those 3, is it possible you could add maybe 1 or 2 more on Thursday or Friday?
From the high school ranks? Yeah. I hate that we're talking in code right now, because I really don't know exactly. I know who I think's going to sign, and I don't even have my phone on me. I don't know who the heck signed in the last 10 minutes that maybe hasn't been announced, has been announced. If there's a way to decipher the code on regards to who we're talking about, I don't know. After today, I think there's one young man that's deciding tomorrow that he's already announced. We're optimistic on that, but again, don't know. Nobody's told me anything, yes or no. I've had good conversations with everybody that we're still recruiting. The people that I've been recruiting here for a long time, I've had great conversations with all of them. I know not all of them have signed here to come with us, but outside of one that's already announced, he's making his decision tomorrow. I do not envision anything changing that we sign more than one guy in addition tomorrow. Now, I could walk out of here and somebody could say, hey, so-and-so didn't sign with school X and he wants to come to South Carolina, and I may say, heck yeah, and that may change. But as we sit here today, Phil, that's how I see things going.
With Darius Gray, Zion, Anthony Baxter, what do you see in those 3 guys? But then obviously that position and getting those high upside guys out of high school ranks, how important is that for the future of that position? Yeah,
we've recruited well there, and those are 3 big time guys from that are really good people for sure. I feel like good things happen when I'm down at Kiowa. Like Baxter called and committed to me when I was at Kiowa. So, and so I need to go there more often, maybe. I don't know. But Baxter called and committed. He's just a guy. He's an in-state guy. Anthony is a ton of energy, and comes from a great program there at South Point, and they're obviously doing great things this season. So really, really fired up about what he brings. Darius, like I said, you talk about athleticism. You think he's good at football, you ought to watch him play basketball. And I went to his high school basketball game last year and sat with his mom and said, wow. Like, you see some big lineman play basketball and you're like, man, there's no way this guy should be playing basketball. All he does is just stand in the paint and take up space. Like, Darius has game. And I love that as an offensive lineman. Like, you see the athleticism, you see the ability to take guys off the dribble, to position his body, the flexibility. I mean, he's a big-time person that's been here a lot. I love his family. They're just super people. They were here on Saturday, and he will make us better when he walks in the door. And everybody in the country recruited him for a reason. And I've been, Coach Clellan, the head coach at St. Chris, I've been recruiting that school since I was at Virginia Tech, and really fired up to finally get one of his guys in our program because they do a great job at St. Christopher's in Richmond, and really pleased that he's coming and what Darius means to our program on and off the field. And you talk about the glue in so many ways because of how high profile he is, and rightfully so. And then Zion, same thing. Went and watched Zion play with Coach Elliott during our second off week over at Carter's Bay, and another one. Just mom and dad are awesome, and just somebody that when you meet with certain people, you're like, okay, this guy's not just a great player, but he's about the right stuff. He's a future team captain type guy, and that's how I feel, about those linemen. And he's immensely talented, and they will come in the door day one and add to that room, make us better on and off the field, and really proud to have those guys, because we had to beat out a who's who of college football for all of them, and to be able to sign all three of them, huge additions to that room.
Shane, question about the season that just finished in the team. The offensive line, you struggled. A lot of those guys had a lot of stars beside their names. Some guys were transfers. So when a unit performs that poorly, is it easy to assign an area of a blame between coaching or development, or maybe they're just not that good? Just how do you kind of look at that after the season when you've had?
No, it's a fantastic question, and you're right. We've brought in highly ranked recruiting classes, and a lot of them have done some really good things. But then there's also highly ranked offensive line classes, and a lot of them have done some really good things. And some of them, for whatever reason, it hasn't quite worked out. There's some guys that were part of highly recruited offensive line classes that have transferred from here and went to play at a different place or a lower level. There's some guys that maybe haven't developed as quickly. I think it's a few things, David. One, that's a hard position to evaluate for sure, because of the level of competition. There's a lot of high school offensive linemen that line up and are, blocking guys that look like Fink on the defensive line. It's a compliment as you get old, or me or whoever, and it's just a different level of competition. So that's one thing you've got to do a great job projecting. And then two, it's when you get them in your program, you've got to develop them. And we've developed. I mean, Shed started as a true freshman. Josiah started as a true freshman. Tro started as a true freshman. So we've done a lot of really good things from that standpoint, but probably not consistently enough. So yeah, you look at everything. You look at, them in high school. What kind of senior years do they have? The level of competition, the overall athleticism, the hunger and the desire to be great. Do they have that? And that's hard to evaluate because we're limited more than ever on how much we're able to go out on the road and get to know these guys. And then you look at everything you're doing within your program: weight room, training room, nutrition, coaching, all that. So, we need to be better, but I know these guys that we just signed have the right ingredients of what you're looking for. When you talk about the linemen that we've brought in here, whether it be from the portal or whether it be from high school recruiting, the ones that were really successful, the Nick Gargiulos, the Torricelli Simpkins, the Vershawn Lees of the world, these guys have a lot of those qualities, and excited to add them here.
What can you say about Jazavian and what he'll add to the secondary, I guess, in terms of versatility and things?
Yeah, he's just got the it factor, whatever that is. He's a heck of a football player, and you see what South Point is doing right now on the field, and what they've done this season. And he is leading the way, playing quarterback, playing defensive back. I remember when they come to seven. Coach Collins brings his team down here for 7-on-7 every year, and I remember watching him. I guess going into his sophomore year, I guess. And just saying, he's got it, whatever it is, size, speed, athleticism, but just the energy and the competitive spirit that he brings. He's a guy that, he's a day one impact guy, in my opinion, and has all the qualities you're looking for in an elite football player.
Shane, you just talked about South Point. South Carolina has always pulled a lot of guys out of there, even going back to your days as an assistant. How important is it, and what is it like to, I guess, keep that pipeline between USC and South Point going?
Yeah, for sure. There have been some great ones, some of the best players to ever play here that came out of that high school, and so many up there in the Rock Hill area. And for us, it always, starts in the state of South Carolina. We want to keep the best players at home, and it just so happens that, South Point's got a couple of them this year, and they got some guys that we're recruiting in future years too. So we're going to continue to go into South Point High School. We're going to continue to go to all the high schools in the state of South Carolina and do our best to keep the best players in South Carolina here in South Carolina. And that's a high school that they've got a great tradition, rightfully so, and they're doing great things right now and doing some special things on the field currently too.
Shane, it may be a little too soon to ask this, but since you still have exit meetings and whatnot, but based on the conversations you've had with guys and what you feel like may still be left to fill in terms of what you didn't get in high school recruiting, what are, in your opinion, the top positions of need as you enter the portal cycle here next month?
Lines of scrimmage. If you look, and I'm just basing that, Jack, off of the target numbers that we want to have going into every season from a scholarship standpoint, we are under those numbers at the defensive tackle position and the offensive line position. So right away, just from a need standpoint, offensive line, defensive tackle, offensive line, defensive tackle, offensive line, defensive tackle. But we need to get our depth increased there, and we need to certainly not just bring in depth pieces. We need to bring in impact guys that can compete with a already good room, in my opinion. You look at that defensive tackle position with Gabe coming back and Troy Pikes and some of the plays he made Saturday against Clemson, and Devontae Miles and young guys coming in and young guys already here. We've got some good young players, but if you're just looking at the personnel number of scholarship guys that we want to have at each position, we're under there. And as we sit here today, we have, 3 scholarship running backs in our program, and that's literally impossible to go into a season with 3 scholarship running backs with the wear and tear that you have at that position. So we've got to be able to. We didn't sign a high school running back. I don't know if that's a mystery guy, but don't plan on signing a high school running back. And we need to certainly go attack the portal to be able to increase the depth at those positions. But again, I wouldn't close the door on any position because I feel like there's areas where we can always get better and increase the competition at. And again, I've had probably half Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Over half of the meetings that I've had. I'm going to meet with every player on the team this week, whatever it is, 109 guys, 10 guys that we have on our roster right now. And I've got, the rest of them over the next couple days, and we'll see how those meetings go. Somebody may decide to leave that I'm not planning on, but, outside of, one that was already announced and a couple other meetings I had with guys yesterday where, we decided that was from both sides that it was best to maybe go our separate ways, that I don't anticipate a lot of additional attrition beyond that.
You've talked a lot about leadership over the course of the year, and obviously it's a young team, and you mentioned that experience matters, but I think 2 weeks ago, Furry was in here sort of saying, we still need those leaders in kind of game-tight positions. I guess, is that something you're planning on attacking in the portal, and how do you recruit leadership? Yeah,
awesome question. Yes, we need to get older, whether that's in the portal or whether that's with the returning team. And we will automatically be older next year and more battle tested because of who we have coming back. It is what it is. If you look at the teams that we played this season, compare the number of seniors that played for us compared to Vanderbilt. I think Missouri started more seniors on defense than we started on offense and defense combined. I think Alabama started more seniors on defense than we started on offense and defense combined. So to me, your best teams are your older teams. And, frankly, this season, and youth isn't an excuse. You're going to have young teams, and I've been around young teams that are great. That's awesome. But there's no substitute for experience. And then in addition to that, the leadership. And we played we played 3 veteran teams this season that literally are having, you could argue, the greatest seasons in the history of their football program. I don't know what some of the teams we lost to, what their history was back in the 50s. I'm sure they won a national championship in 1954 or something. But as long as I've been alive, you could argue there's about 3 teams right now that are potentially going to the playoff that are having the best seasons in the history of their football program. And they were veteran teams. And we ran into those teams this season, and we're going to be an older team next year. Our team on Monday morning, Lulu, they voted on permanent captains. And, you know, of the permanent captains that they voted, there's, I think we voted 5 that had the most votes. I think 3 of them have eligibility left. And then of the top 20 vote getters for captain, there's like 14 of them that are going to be coming back on next year's team. So we're going to be older, and you're going to have that leadership. So we're going to have a leader, an older team that has great player leadership automatically because of who we have coming back, and we will be older with more juniors and seniors. But certainly we're looking for guys that that have those leadership qualities. It's hard to find. You go into high schools, like as a head coach now, I'm only allowed on the road literally in the month of January, period, unless I go out during the season, which I did every opportunity this year. I went out every Thursday and Friday of a bye week. I was out recruiting. I think next year we only have 1 bye week, and I don't like going out on Fridays because I'm with the team on Friday. So if that means I'm only going out Thursday and Friday next year during the bye week, I've got 2 days in the fall and I've got 3 weeks in January, and that's the only time I'm in a high school, and that's tough. But you do as much evaluation as you can, talk to the high school coaches, talk to the people in the schools about what kind of people and leadership guys they are. Then when they get in our program, we have to do an awesome job of helping to, you know, teach and develop. I think you can develop that leadership in a lot of ways and put them in positions where they're forced to lead. And absolutely, as we attack the portal, we'll be looking for guys that are older guys that have leadership qualities, where you could bring in a guy like like a Nick Gargiulo, who arrived in January and was voted a permanent captain by his teammates 11 months later or in December, or Torricelli Simpkins, or Demetrius Knight, guys like last season, who, when you think about the greatest leaders to ever come through here, I think about those guys in a lot of ways, and they were transfer portal guys. So yes, yes, and yes, to answer your question.
To sort of follow up on David's question, and hopefully you're not putting a whole lot of resources into recruiting him, like you mentioned earlier. But
he's one of those Rock Hill guys, though, right? Yep, he laid the foundation back in the day for all the great players that have come out of Rock Hill. Before there was Clowney and Gilmore and Holloman, there was Cloninger. Gur. What did I say, Jur? I said Gur first. That's my fault. Cloninger. Let me get that soundbite better so you can use it. Before there was Clowney, Gilmore, and Holloman, there was Cloninger. That better? All right. Sorry, David.
But to follow up on his offensive line question, like, beyond the recruiting aspect of it, you know, the offensive line play, I think, has probably underperformed every year in your tenure here. Like, how do you address that position as a whole this offseason? Is it, you know, by offensive coordinator bringing in a new offensive line coach? Do you have to re-examine like everything that y'all have done at that position?
Yeah, I think you look not just at the offensive line position, John, but after every season, particularly after a disappointing season like we just had, you look at everything that you're doing. So you evaluate all areas and all positions. But we know we have not been good enough on the offensive line. I mean, looking at the stats yesterday, once again, I think we're last in the SEC in giving up sacks. And we've got to be better. And as I've always said to you guys, that's not just on the offensive line. That's receivers, running backs, tight ends, quarterback, coaches. So we all have to be better. But yes, that's a position that hasn't been good enough. I made a change there in the middle of the season. I feel like we were better down the stretch in a lot of ways, but still not where any of us want to be. And then as you move forward into 2026, yes, there's 2 staff hires that I still have to make at this point. And when you make those hires as the head coach, I'm looking at how do we enhance everything that we're doing? And is everybody in our program in the right roles? And if you need to adjust, great. If you don't, great. You continue to empower those guys in the roles that they're in. But I really like the some of the progress we made down the stretch, and we've got the opportunity now with a couple other hires that I have to make to really take another step from an overall offensive standpoint for sure. But, you know, Sean came in, Elliott, in a tough position and really settled that group down, and I thought got them playing hard and doing a lot of good things here down the stretch, and we still have the ability to continue to get better, and that's what we're hard at work to do.
There were a lot of coaches that just wanted the one transfer portal window, but now there's a month where technically there's not supposed to be contact, and I'm assuming right when the portal opens there's going to be a bunch of signings immediately. How do you navigate that as a head coach when technically there's not supposed to be contact, but one could imagine that schools and agents and things are going to be happening?
Yeah, I'm also in that camp of only wanting one transfer window, because I want to know who's going to be on this football team when they come back and we have a team meeting in January before classes start. I know that's the 2026 football team, so I'm all for that. But yes, it is a little bit different. They all have agents, and I don't know what I can say. Can't really say. It's different. It's definitely a different dynamic. Last year during the month of December, it was a period where people could come visit. I mean, there was a practice out there last year when we were getting ready for bowl practice where, Zion, who we signed today, was at practice, but so was, I think, Gabe Brownlow-Dindy was at practice on a portal visit. And whoever else, I think Justice Haynes, who went to Michigan as the running back, he was here that day on a visit and whatnot. So you don't have that this year. It's a dead period, so they can't visit your campus. So I think people that think that the portal's not active right now and that all of a sudden the portal's going to open on January 2nd or whatever it is, and then everybody's just starting fresh and scratch that day, it's not realistic because they all have agents, and their agents aren't taking the month of December off to be rested up for January when the portal opens. So it's a different dynamic. There's a lot of balls in the air right now in regards to being able to add to your current roster, but then also being able to, work to retain your roster along with signing a signing class. There's a lot going on right now.
Shane, I think you got 3 QBs in your room right now with another at least committed. Do you have to go get a transfer portal QB? Is that a position of need considering that none of the guys you have are really experienced?
Yeah, it's something that I've thought a lot about, literally going back until the spring. How do we want to handle things going forward? And certainly we have 3 on scholarship. We may have 4 on scholarship later. Who knows? Regardless, I think you certainly got to keep your options open from that standpoint. Lenoris has a decision to make. We know that. So there's a lot of balls in the air on that one. But, yes, I would be all for a guy that, you could potentially add, to that room to add some depth. Without a doubt, you got Jimmy Francis in that room too, but outside that, and Brandon Cunningham. So we've got some bodies, but in regards to scholarship quarterbacks, we don't have many, and we're young and inexperienced. And I remember, I think I've told you guys, when I was at Oklahoma with Lincoln, there were some years where we had some quarterbacks, Tanner Mordecai, Austin Kendall, some guys that were in our program that transferred because we had Spencer and we had Jalen Hurts and we had Kyler Murray, and they didn't want to sit around and wait. And next thing you look up, you're down to like Chandler Morris. You're down to like 2 quarterbacks in your program that you're either recruiting or have on your roster. So I don't want to get in that situation, and we won't next season. But I don't think at the quarterback position you can ever have enough. But there's other positions. Certainly, let's say we only have 5 scholarships available. There's other positions that are certainly a higher priority than going to get another scholarship quarterback, in my opinion.
I think you said there were 5 guys who were voted permanent team captain. Can you share those off the top of your head?
I can't, because our awards banquet's not till Sunday. So you want me to announce the winners before the players even know it? I would love to, Neil. I'd love to give you breaking news, and I'm sure Steve will put out all the award winners. Really proud of our players. It's always fascinating. I know how I see things as coaches, and we vote on a lot of awards. So the awards that we hand out on Sunday, there's some of them that we decide as coaches, but we allow the players to vote on the captains. We allow the players, they vote on the offensive MVP. They vote on the defensive MVP. They vote on the special teams MVP. They vote on the most inspirational walk-on. They vote on the most outstanding senior the guy that, embodies everything that we want to be about on and off the field, that's a senior. And then they vote on what we call the above all else award, the guy that always puts the team first. So those are awards that the players themselves vote on, not the coaches. But it's always pretty cool when you see the results after they voted, because I know how I see things, and it's always pretty cool to see how they see things. And I was really proud of them this year and the way they voted and the guys that they decided to recognize as the most valuable players of their different areas, for sure.
So I was gonna. That's when the players find out who.
They find out Sunday.
Okay,
yeah, it's Sunday at, I think, 6. We're doing that on Sunday night, and I'll miss not coming in here afterwards and talking to y'all about the bowl destination. That'll stink, but we do that on Sunday night, and that's when the players will find out at that banquet.
And last one for you, the two corners, Kasi and KJ, what do you guys feel like that?
Yeah, when you look at the DBs in general, when you talk about Kasi, you talk about KJ, you talk about Jazavian, and you talk about Tristan Lewis, another one. Tristan Lewis called and committed when I was at Kiowa. I'm going to give people blast coaches for playing golf. I was actually going to play golf, and Tristan Lewis called and committed to me this summer. So for those of you, there's another coach in the league that took all kinds of crap for playing golf. I got a commitment while I was playing golf. So you always have your phone on you on that one. But Tristan's an in-state guy that we had in camp. I know you asked about who others, but you talk about two in-state DBs, Tristan and Jazavian, but then KJ and Kasi, we reloaded the secondary. We lost Nick off last year's team, and you lost O'Donnell off last year's team, and then this year you lost DQ, and then we've got a couple that have NFL decisions to make that they're still weighing right now. So we knew that we had some good young players in that room, but we needed to add the depth. And when you talk about Kasi, KJ, Jazavian, and Tristan, those are all guys with size and athleticism that can do a lot. And particularly, KJ and Kasi we see as corners that have length. They can run. They have athleticism. Kasi, I thought, had a great senior season. Didn't commit when I was at Kiowa, but did commit while I was going across the bridge in Charleston to a Luke Bryan concert this summer. So there's good things happening when I'm down there with the Post and Courier territory there, David, for sure. But Kasi, just awesome family, and comes from a great school. It's good to get somebody from up there out of Grimsley High School, and that's where Kasi came from. That's a really proud program, and rightfully so, that's still playing up there. And I love guys that if you watch their senior year, they get better as seniors. When you start talking about red flags and guys that maybe don't pan out when they get to college, I think if you look back at the senior seasons they had, their senior seasons aren't as good as maybe their sophomore and junior season. And when you talk about all these guys, you watch how they played as seniors, they got better. They didn't commit somewhere, get the scholarship offer, and all of a sudden coast and protect themselves. They got better as a senior. And I would say that about all those DBs, and we expect them to get in here from day one. Kasi's a guy that we got in on late, or everybody did. He didn't get a ton of offers until really the spring of his going into his senior year, and then blew up, and rightfully so, and then really had a good senior season. So I'm proud to have them join our program and excited to get them here. I see the hand motions. I feel like this is a doozy that you're about to lay on me here.
Well, considering their importance to the football team in the future for next year, what is your deepest, truest feelings about Lenoris and Dylan? I mean, your truest, deepest feelings about are they going to be with you in 20? I mean, and wouldn't you like to know as sooner? And isn't it important to know as soon as possible?
No, it absolutely is, and that's what I've conveyed to Lenoris, Dylan, Nicholas Harbor, Brandon Cisse, Jalen Kilgore. I mean, there's a lot of guys that have NFL decisions that they can make. I mean, that's a few. There's anybody that's been in college football for 3 years has the ability to go to the NFL if they want, but certainly those guys are guys that have decisions to make, and I don't want to rush them, but certainly I've told those guys that the quicker, and I've told their families when I've talked to them, the quicker that they make a decision, the better it is for all of us in regards to hiring offensive coaches. They want to know, is Nicholas Harbor and Lenora Sellers, am I going to be coaching them if I come to South Carolina? So the quicker I can tell them yes, the better that is for all of us, this entire program. Same thing from a, defensive standpoint as we go down the road with the portal on offense and defense. Guys that want to come here and play, they want to know, who's going to be there with them. So, yeah, I want everybody to make the right decision for them, Phil, when the time is right. We're not pressuring anybody. Those are conversations that I've had with those guys leading into this week. Those are conversations that I've had with those guys this week. I'm not going to give you my deepest, most inner feelings, but I do know this. Those are all, if you talk about Dylan and Lenore specifically, those are great young men, and Nicholas too, that really believe in what we're doing. And my conversations with them are they're extremely excited about what this team could be in 2026. And they're a big part of that. There's no question. And I don't think I know there's no sense of, I'm not really sure South Carolina's where I want to be. It's them making the best decisions for them and their families and their futures. And my conversations with them and their families have been awesome, along with, agents that they have. And we want them to do what's best for them. And we've got to do what's best for our overall program. There's no question about it. But I think all those young men, they believe in what we're doing here. They know what kind of team we can have in 2026. They're extremely disappointed about what we did in 25, and they're extremely hungry about 2026. That doesn't mean that I'm saying they're coming back, but I know if they don't come back, it's not going to be because they're unhappy or don't believe in the direction of where we're headed. That's for sure. And along with Dylan, too, I think David asked me after the game on Saturday, the guy basically had a broken back. And for anybody, not that anybody is, but for anybody to criticize that guy and try and create any kind of conspiracy theory about why he wasn't out there in the as much against Clemson, it's because most players in the country wouldn't even have been playing in that game. But he gutted it out, and to me, I told him the other day when I met with him how proud I am of him because of how he gutted it out through an injury and not a broken back where we're risking his health and his future. We've had conversations with doctors and mom and everyone else, and everybody is on board with him being out there. So there's other players across the SEC that have a similar injury that are playing just like Dylan is, but he's at a position where, let's be real, that's physical, and there's a lot of bending and contact, and he gutted it out throughout the season, and particularly from the Ole Miss game on, because we weren't sure if he was going to be able to play against Ole Miss, and proud of him. And he'll be the first to tell you that there's plays from Saturday that he wasn't at his best, and he wanted to and would want to be better. I'll agree. There's some plays that I'm sure he wasn't proud of Saturday, but really proud of him for being out there, gutting it out, and attempting to go, because I don't know as many people that maybe would have if they were in his situation. So just wanted to say that because, again, I love all y'all. I haven't been on social media reading a lot other than about what you're writing and what people are saying, other than just retweeting Gamecock football when guys committed or signed today. But it got back to me that, there's some people maybe beating him up a little bit about the Clemson game. You want to beat anybody up, beat me up. I'm the one that's the head coach, and we put a poor product on the field Saturday. Dylan, rest. Does not need surgery. He just needs to rest. And when we had that conversation with him I think Ole Miss, the game was maybe November 1st. When we had that conversation with the doctors and with Dylan and Dylan's mom, it was said, you're not going to make it worse by playing. So you can't hurt yourself worse by being out there. You don't need surgery. But the only way for this to get better and get well is for you to have extended rest. And he easily, I don't know what our record was when we played Ole Miss, but he 3-5, something like that. Whatever, not good. He easily could have said, man, it's November 1st. We're not having the season that we want. I'm going to shut it down and rest and get ready for January. And he didn't. He went out and played against Ole Miss. He went out and played against A&M. He didn't play, I guess, against Coastal, and then he went out and played against Clemson. So, no surgery's needed, just needs rest and get it under control where it's not aggravating him like it is right now. And when I say broke back, it's not like his spinal cord is shattered. I'm not saying that. He's got a little bit of a back issue that's somewhat common with some guys, other guys on this team, too, that he battled through, and he'll rest up. over December and be ready to, roll in January. Hopefully here at South Carolina Phil, as I unload my deepest thoughts in regards to him. And I love all those guys, love all the guys on this team, and excited to get the core of these guys back in January and get rolling on a better 26. Thank you, Coach. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
Well, that was Shane Beamer, and 49 minutes of Shane Beamer. A lot of Shane Beamer. Captain Dave, Tyler Head. Tyler Head thinks he's getting a day off, and they got to cut up all that audio. Dave, are we hitting a break here? Do we need to catch a break right here? Yep. All right. Let's hit a break. We'll come back on the other side. A few thoughts. Go from there. You're listening to the Halftime Show.
post-game show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging around. Jay Phillips will be with us about 15 minutes roughly. We'll drag old Gunner in here for a little bit longer. You haven't been here enough.
Yeah. I haven't sat in this seat forever. I'm looking at that. I'm confused.
You were funny. You were scared.
I can't hear nothing in these headphones. Like,
yeah.
I'm so
okay.
lost
Can I tell
all
you,
of a sudden.
I've sat there. You got to plug that headset into plug 3 because plug 2 is not working for some reason.
Okay, well,
You're a
I
newbie
can
on this.
hear you. I can
That's
hear.
all that
Yeah.
matters. That's all that matters.
I didn't get to talk for an hour, so why not 15 more minutes with you?
Minutes. What the hell? So first of all, would you? Because I won't bore people. I was stuck on some boring corporate call for the last hour, so I didn't get to hear. I got to watch Shane lip sync for a few minutes.
Yeah.
So what do you think of Shane's presser about early signing day?
Well, I will say I grew up in the Lou Holtz. I really got into paying attention to signing day in the Lou Holtz era, and Lou Holtz would be honest and come in and basically say, "Hey, look, we don't know what we got. we might have a doctor, we might have a street sweeper. I don't know what we have. We'll tell you in 4." And that was when you got guys for 4 to 5 years,
right?
But then as coach speak changed, this as coaches became, as Twitter and video and everything going viral became more prevalent, what you ended up getting is